it's been known in previous podcasts that Wolfdogs are my favorite. If the situation ever came to where I was in with them and they just all of a sudden decided to turn on me, and, worst case, I didn't make it out of there, I want it to be 100% known, and I guess this podcast will be proof of that the Wolfdog should...
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Aikman Bros Podcast. I'm James.
Major.
So one thing we wanted to talk about today was just that in the news there's been a zoo down in Florida. I think the story was a janitor hopped a fence to get close for a picture. The tiger ended up mauling him, attacking him, part of his arm. And I think the sheriff ended up having to shoot the tiger.
Yeah.
And so that is a scenario that we've constantly thought about and we planned and why we built our fencing kind of the way we did.
Well, yeah, and this is just, it seems like throughout every year there are multiple different instances of people going behind where they're not supposed to go or becoming part of a situation that ultimately ends bad for the animal, which is kind of in my mind, the worst thing of all these stories that you hear when things like this happen is because the animal's not doing anything wrong. The animal's doing what it's supposed to do. It's always the animal that probably 9 out of 10 times it ends with the animal having to be put down. And that's just the unfortunate thing, is because the animal didn't do anything necessarily wrong. It was doing what it's designed to do. Be interested in a new kind of source of, thing that's not a common thing in its natural day-to-day type of activities. So of course it's going to come up, and if it is a animal that has, that is a big cat, it's probably not going to end too well if it is a person on the other end of that. So this sort of scenario, I don't understand. It doesn't seem like facilities like ours, we constantly try to plan and design to make sure that nothing like this ever happens. And it just seems like every year the public, or in this instance, someone that actually worked for the zoo or was at least a contractor for the zoo, found a new way to get to an animal that, it's designed not supposed to. That's why we've talked, like, theoretically on paper, our hyenas are our most dangerous animal that we have, but because of the safety measures and the safety protocols that we have in place and the double fencing that we have, they are technically our safest animal, because, those are ones that we don't go direct contact with, always a fence between us and them. From the public standpoint, a 6-foot high fence that is at least 6 to 7 feet off of their main fence line. So it eliminates the opportunity of someone dangling their kid over it because it's, 6 foot high as opposed to 4 foot high, to where it makes it a little more uncomfortable for most people to do that sort of thing. And then on top of that, having the space between it. So like all those sort of factors, those are things that all facilities take into consideration. And unfortunately, in this case, it looks like it was a person that potentially definitely had more access than what the general public does, because he actually worked there. But it's something that should not have happened. And unfortunately, like in most of these cases, the animal was the one that had to pay the ultimate sacrifice. So that's why I always tell, so it's been known in previous podcasts that Wolfdogs are my favorite animal here, more times than not. The reason we have 13 is because of me, if you ask James here. And I've told Julia this multiple times. I think I've told you this multiple times. If for whatever reason, if the situation ever came to where I was in with them and they just all of a sudden decided to turn on me, and, worst case, I didn't make it out of there, I want it to be 100% known, and I guess this podcast will be proof of that the Wolfdog should not get put down at all, because that's just that's the risk that we take for being in this line of work, and it should not be the consequences should not rest on the animals themselves for doing, natural type of behaviors, whether that's with the wolf dogs having that pack sort of mentality. And I feel like unless we down the road we get some more high content wolf dogs like how Alpha Nova are, I don't ever see a scenario where that would be an issue. But that's just something that I have already thought about, that a strange fluke type of situation, some sort of outside factor would get them riled up, and it was just the wrong place at the wrong time. From my personal type of belief, I do not feel like the animals should have to take, quote unquote, bullet for situations like this. Because again, I go back to the animals, they're not, they don't have one feeling or another. They're literally just doing what God designed them to do when it comes to, predatory animals. And a prey type of mentality instinct kicks in. You can't fault them for that. You have to fault the person that disobeyed the rules or went in there knowing that an outcome like this was potentially possible.
Yeah, so after the meeting, we'll send out a message to all our employees that if they see you getting eaten or attacked by wolf dogs, just keep on getting their job
Continue
done.
to go back today.
Just turn your back and walk away.
Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, because those sort of scenarios, there have been other stories in the past where, someone tries to go in and tries to say, and then they just another type of victim type of thing, and that gives the quote unquote justification to end that animal's life even that much more validity. But I feel like I said, I can't see with the ones that we have here at the park currently, there's zero doubt in my mind that a scenario like that would ever happen to where I wouldn't be in a position to, maybe I would get injured or something like that, but I wouldn't be able to get in a position where it would actually be a fatal type of thing, just because, again, like I've said with the wolf dogs, when we're in with them, it's always something that we're constantly thinking about, making sure that, not turn your back to them and all this stuff. So like from a safety standpoint, even though those are an animal that we do go full contact with, there are things that we are always constantly thinking of to make sure that if, their attitude's a little different that day than what it normally is, we know how to, I guess, remove ourselves as quickly as possible without, further instigating kind of that behavior that they're displaying potentially. So every time I read a story like this, just a few years ago, I forget what zoo it was, with the gorilla, but basically a family went past barriers, and then ultimately their kid, I think, fell in. And pretty sure in that scenario they had to, put the gorilla down as well to safely get the child out of the enclosure. But it's just, there are a reason why there are guest fencing, and then on top of the actual enclosure design, whether that's another fence line or a moat or anything like that, it's designed to where the guests are X amount of feet back from the actual enclosure fence line, and there's a reason for that. It's not just to piss off the guests that you can't get the best view of the animal. It's to make sure that the guests have the most amount of safety when it comes to the animal. Like there was another video that I saw a few months ago of a giraffe enclosure, and like that fence line is totally different than a big cat fence line, where this fence line was literally just cables, maybe a foot apart from one another, just because giraffe have a little more difficulty getting through a fence line, so you can have a little bit more of a wide gap between the actual fence itself. And someone thought it would be awesome to take a video without a fence line in it, and so he went inside the fence, and then I'm pretty sure he ended up getting kicked by a giraffe. And like all this, someone else was videotaping this guy doing this, and I just, every time I see that, I cringe. That is the negative side of owning a wildlife park that's open to the public. Is unfortunately you do have, let's not beat around the bush, you do have stupid people out there that do stupid things for whatever reason, and they think that the consequences aren't going to land on them.
Yeah. So the reality is, like you said, the animals are usually the ones that suffer and a lot of times die. The reality is that the zoos usually have some kind of behind the scenes type adventure where the person could have gotten up close. So like we've had our behind the scenes kind of part of the walkthrough takes you out to the drive-through and the side-by-side. And so like this year we are changing that to be a behind the scenes and beyond, to actually include all of the encounters that we offer. So any animal that we offer encounters with, you can experience that with the behind the scenes and beyond.
Yeah, no, and that's probably one of the main reasons why a lot of facilities do that, is they realize that the public wants to have as close of interaction with the animals that they have on display as possible. And in order to do that in the safest sort of kind of setting, you need to have a guided type of tour, or with a person that knows the ins and outs of that animal and kind of its behaviors and all this stuff. So to avoid kind of those unsafe type of settings. So I know a couple of years ago when we went to the Indianapolis Zoo and we went into their building with their tiger, there was a painted line on the floor that basically you don't cross that line, and that line is probably still about 3-4 feet off of the actual cage, the enclosure fence line. And like you can't trust the public to do that by the honor system. You have to have someone there with them telling them, do not cross that line, and supervising that. So that is the benefit of being able to offer kind of the behind the scenes that we do, is especially now starting kind of this year, including all those different encounters that we do, you kind of have that quote unquote expert next to you, or at least the person that is well equipped to kind of handle that animal and kind of tell you what you can and can't do. That way you still get the best overall experience and the most interaction, hands-on experience with that animal, but at the same time, there's no situations to where it gets too out of control and the animal gets in a position where it feels threatened or uncomfortable and bites you or claws you or whatever might happen with that animal. So that is kind of a positive thing when you have facilities that do hands-on things, but they're able to kind of do it in a way that's the most safe for everyone involved. For sure.
One of the hands-on is our cute and cuddly. People like that. Go into our warm room and get to see our 2 sugar gliders and then our hedgehog. And then just yesterday, a lady brought 2 more sugar gliders. She had them in her house, 5 total. They had a bedroom that was their area, and the husband wanted to take it back for it to be his office, so she needed to rehome a couple of them, and so we agreed to take them.
James agreed to take them. I just found out about them this morning when I walked into the office.
James and the rest of the team agreed to take them.
Usually that's how it happens. James and the rest of the team decide, and then they all try to figure out how's the best way to tell Andy that we have.
The saying goes, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Definitely applies with Andy.
Yeah. So now we have 4
sugar gliders.
And what I was told is they're all somewhat different looking, unique looking. So that's one of the selling points that he did.
Yes, they would be different. And 2 new ones are a little on the chunky side. So I think our current 2 weigh 99 grams and 103 grams. And the 2 new ones weigh about 132 grams and 167 grams.
Yeah, what is that normal Are ours more towards the normal, or are these more towards the normal in terms of the weight? I guess we're gonna have to go on a diet.
There's a range of weights. I think it's anywhere from 80 up to 120 is the range.
So 163. It's probably gonna have to lose a little bit.
Yeah, so I think there'd be some kind of slowly wean off. But when we last sugar ladder we took in, we had the food that they were feeding them, and we had our food, and we started offering our food, and he liked our food more. So I'm anticipating that will eventually happen with these girls as well.
Because the sugar gliders are one of those unique animals where this is the only actual encounter that you actually get to see them. So like since they are nocturnal, we don't have them on display for the general public to maybe see them kind of every once in a while out and about. Literally the only way to see them is if you sign up for the Cute Cuddly encounter. So little exclusiveness to that encounter for sure when it comes to sugar gliders.
They have a bunch of different toys hanging up in their enclosure, and the lady brought a monster tub full of more toys and blankets and little towels.
Because usually, I mean, I'm not the one that does the encounters with these, but usually since they are nocturnal,
so you don't even go in that room
if I can avoid it. Yeah. When they do the encounter, usually they're kind of resting in their pouches, right? So it's kind of more so peeking in, doing maybe a little pet on them, nothing real crazy. But I know when I've been in the gift shop and kind of in the evening hours, nighttime, you will hear them playing around on all their little toys. Because at first it kind of always startles me, like what the heck is that coming from that room? But then when you hear it more, it kind of, you put two and two together to where, oh, that's sugar gliders are out and about, kind of just playing around. So.
Well, Peekaboo, our white one, and then Nissa, one of the new ones, the bigger one too. Both of them come right up and walk along your arm, and so I think it'll make for a cool experience with people. And so
wherever you tell yourself,
Cute and Cuddly is one of our encounters. It's one of the encounters that would be included in the behind the scenes and beyond package. But then the other thing about it is it's one of our encounters that we can do all year long. So our Cute and Cuddly and a reptile both get done in the gift shop. They can be done all year long. And so a lot of people think that we completely close down in the wintertime. We actually are open on Saturdays in the winter. We keep our website and our Facebook and our phone message updated if there is bad weather and like the drive-thru has to be shut down or something like that. But the bar, the idea is it's open every Saturday, and then our museum is open Mondays and Wednesdays. But like those encounters are things people can still do during the wintertime.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's no getting around it. Even though we try to do as much as we possibly can, there is a distinct quote-unquote busy season and slow season. So, and that's just strictly because of how the weather turns here in Illinois. So kind of from end of October, kind of more so maybe November, all the way through at least February. Again, it kind of all hinges upon if we have a mild winter or a late winter or an early spring or anything like that, to where we start to offer more things than we normally offer in the busy season. But definitely there are a few hardships that we have to do. I mean, just this past Saturday, we ended up closing the whole park because that Friday night we did get probably about an inch or so of snow. It was going to be to the point where it was going to be too slick out in the drive-thru to have that open, and it was enough that it covered the pathways and all that stuff. So it just kind of, we decided for the temperature that it was going to get up to for that day, it wasn't worth necessarily being open. So I mean, there has been in years past where we've been completely closed every single Saturday for the month of January, and then even like for sure last year we were open every single Saturday. So again, we are kind of at the mercy of what Mother Nature wants to do during this time. But more times than not, there is a period when the ground kind of freezes, but yet the air temperature might not be too bad out, high 30s, 40s, but the ground is still frozen, and it gets just more or less kind of a soupy mess out in the drive-through, to where it makes our pathways almost undrivable, kind of from a chance of getting stuck and all that stuff. So that kind of usually happens maybe towards the end of January into February. Again, kind of depends on if we kind of have a mild February, or if we still getting snow during February. It kind of pushes that back a little bit, but there is a period of time right towards the end of kind of that slow season winter months that the drive-through, even though the rest of the park might be open, the drive-through kind of still has to be closed, just strictly because of our pathways kind of being undrivable. Because we kind of got to think, someone that comes here with a tiny little compact car, is it going to be able to make everything? If you come out here with a truck that's four-wheel drive and you want to do the drive-through and it's closed, you might think, well, why? But we kind of have to take everyone in consideration. And grandma coming out in a tiny little car wanting to do the drive-through, we don't want a scenario where she would get stuck, and God forbid they don't call for us first and they try to get out and push themselves, and they're in a situation where they're out with other animals, or has happened more than once. So that kind of ties back into the first segment of this in terms of people doing things that they're not supposed to. But no, so there's definitely some hardships and some kind of attractions that at the moment we still haven't been able to figure out a good way to kind of keep them going all throughout the year, just really because of the weather and the elements, and just having to deal with those. So unless we literally dome the whole park over, it's probably one of those things that we will always be at the mercy of what kind of the weather is doing during this time of month. But just like with the museum, some of those encounters, the first year we did close. There was an end date and an open date for us because we didn't have anything that pertained to being able to do different sort of things inside. So after that first year, we kind of decided that we need to figure that out. And it's just one of those things that hopefully as the years go on, we will continue to kind of be able to offer potentially more and more of those type of attractions or encounters that don't rely on the weather. Because we do also have our winter barn tours that would be available as well, especially in those days that the drive-thru can't be open. You'd still be able to do an encounter to where you see some of those more larger animals that are normally out the drive-thru a little up close. So that'd be another thing that would potentially be able to be offered and done with on those days that other things aren't open.
Yeah. So if you're looking for something to do in the wintertime, we are open again most Saturdays. The museum's open also on Mondays and Wednesdays. So you can always, we do recommend checking out the Facebook page or the website or calling ahead, one of those three, just to make sure we are going to be open just in case the weather was bad. But with that, we appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
Cool story, bro.